Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Dennis. I work with Maria Pessin, and I'd like to just kick this event off by welcoming everybody to this live webinar. We're going to be talking today about how to get quality sales reps for your fashion business. Basically, my role here is just to moderate the questions a bit. I want to make sure everybody has access to the chat that they're seeing on their screen. If you have any questions, just write them in. If you could just confirm to us that you're alive and that you're around, that would be great. And I'd like to get this event off the ground by presenting Maria. I've been working with Maria for several years now. She is really awesome. She's a true expert in the fashion business. I don't know anybody who knows this business better. And so for me, it's just a real pleasure to welcome Maria on to this webinar and get it going. So Maria, take it away.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Maria Pessin. I'm the CEO and founder of Vibe Consulting. If you want to look up my site, it's vibeconsulting.co, not com. Everyone makes that mistake. It's co. And I'll give you a little bit more of my background. I've been in the industry for over 30 years, 25 of which I spent launching new brands from zero and building them to multi-million-dollar businesses, selling anywhere from Neiman's to Macy's and specialty stores and catalogs and online businesses. And I was responsible for everything down to profit and loss. I've been fortunate to build a solid road force that produced 800 stores, opened 800 stores for me, excess of 800 stores, and did a lot of volume for my business quite profitably. So I have a lot of experience in this area. And one of the things that I do for my clients is I find them sales reps and I help manage them. So it's an ongoing thing for me that I do. And I'm very familiar and knowledgeable about the process. So if anyone, again, I'm going to say this a few times during the webinar, if anyone has any questions, please type them in and I'll answer your questions as we go along. And I'll also probably ask you questions so that it'll get your juices flowing. So getting sales reps for your business, and when I say quality sales reps, I have an intention there because there are sales reps that are not going to do very much for you. They're not the best sales reps and they're not very successful. They take your money and then you don't see an order, or they just don't have the right business model for your product. So when I talk about getting sales reps for your business, I'm talking about getting the right sales reps for your business so that your business is successful. And the first thing that I want to talk to you about is knowing your market. In order to find the right sales rep, you need to understand who your customer is and who your competition is. This way you can make sure the other lines in a sales rep showroom complement your line and sells to the same stores. So what I mean by that is once you know who your customer is and who your competition is and where you sit in the marketplace, then you could look for sales reps for showrooms that have a similar demographic. Because if they don't, then they're not going to have the relationships with the correct stores that could buy your product. The worst thing is to go after a customer base that is the wrong customer base, because not only will they not buy it, but if they do buy it, they won't be successful with it. And you want to be successful as you can be. And one of the first steps is being in the showroom that complements what your line has, but also doesn't compete with what you have. So you don't want them to have a line that's so similar to yours that you're competing with it. It's a fine line to find the right balance between complementary lines and not competing lines. So knowing your market, doing the research, I always suggest that people do a competitive analysis before they do anything else, because once you go into the market and really know who you hang with and really have a focus, then you have the most opportunity to be successful. Next point, make sure your prices are competitive. Many startups have trouble in this area. They don't have enough volume to get good prices. Initially, you may have to take a shorter margin until your line gets traction and you have big enough cutting tickets. So what that means is that you're kind of, when you're new or you're a smaller company, you're between a rock and a hard place, as they say. You don't have enough volume to have competitive prices, but if your prices aren't competitive, then you can't sell. So how do you solve that? And what many new companies do is they work tighter on their pricing. They don't make as much money just to get placed and placed correctly. And the way to make sure your prices are competitive is when you do your competitive analysis to really study the product prices, what their quality level is, what their fabrications are, to make sure that you're similar. And if you're looking at a big brand that already is very successful, you want them to be a little bit less than them, because a big brand will beat you every time. Does anyone that I'm speaking with have reps right now? Can you tell me if you do? Just type in yes or no. And also, are you new companies or are you companies that are existing that you want to get to the next level? Okay, let's move on to the next question, the next point. Do your due diligence. Research who the best reps are in the region you want to be in. A good way to find a rep is to ask your buyers who they recommend. Now, if you don't have any business and you're first starting out, that might be problematic for you, but do your research. Find out who the brands are in the business that you think would have a similar kind of vibe to yours. Again, you don't want them to be competitive, and so you reps them. Once you get one rep, it's much easier to get others because the reps tend to know each other and they speak to each other, and they can recommend other people in other regions of the country for your product. And that's why you want to at least get one off the ground. So pick the most important region for you and then study who the reps are in that area. You could do a LinkedIn check. You can do a Google search. You could find the people. Some of them only have Facebook sites. Most of them do have websites, especially people that are younger, kind of the old-fashioned, the old-timers, as we say. They don't always have websites, but they do a lot of times have Facebook. So you can find them through Facebook as well. And there's a lot of reps, but there's not a lot of reps in another way. There's not enough reps out there, but there's still enough to go after and to find. So do the research. And if you have any buyers that you have relationships with, or you're going into stores and talking to different stores and different store owners, you might ask them if they have any reps that they work with that they like. Word of mouth is an excellent way to find people. And once you start to talk to the reps you're interested in, if they say that they don't have room for you or they're not ready to take you on, ask them who they recommend. Because they all know each other and they all know everyone's packages and they can make recommendations. Some will, some won't. But the more you do this research and this work, the more you'll find and the more you can zero into the person that you're looking for. Okay, so let's go to the next one. What is your story? Now, this is like marketing 101. Just like your social media or your advertising or your PR, they want to know a story. Reps want collections that they feel has a unique backstory. They need the story in order to market your brand. And I'll give you a couple of examples of this. I have one client that is called Rhino Flops, and they started in business about a year ago. And their whole premise is that they take animals, South African animals, and they use them in a kind of tongue-in-cheek, whimsical way, that they have these kind of scenes on their flip-flops, and they're very bright and vibrant and fun. And they also give back to a rhino orphanage in South Africa, and they do other charitable works. And they're also very into sustainability and doing things ecologically correctly. And that's their story. And I have to tell you, the story is so strong that when they do some pop-ups, they see customers who come in who buy the flip-flops just because of the story. And that's what reps want. They want collections that they could tell the story so that the story is interesting to the customer. I will tell you a funny story, personal story. I once bought these panels, and they were like carved out wood, and they were very intricate and very interesting. And I was told they came off a barn in Mexico, like some crazy story. And I thought, oh my God, I have to have these. I since found out they made that up. But and not that I'm saying you should make up a story, but having a story is really strong. I have another client that I spoke to recently who started a brand, and the brand was started by her and her 3 sisters. So it's 4 sisters that are doing this together, and they named the brand after the sisters. And their whole backstory is how these sisters have this amazing relationship, and they wanted to be in business together, and they have been very close, and they're all young and hip and cool. And so they're the story for their brand. And that's what you have to think about when you are doing any of your branding, is what is your story? And the reps need that so that they could give a presentation that's strong and impactful. And that will help them to sell and market your brand. Make sure your production is top notch. I can't overemphasize this and how important this is. Reps do not like to pioneer a new line. And one of the reasons that they don't like to do this is because of the production issues that many clients have that I speak with who are brand new. Even people who have been in business for a couple of years on occasion will have production issues. That's just normal. You're never going to be perfect, but you need to be as perfect as possible, because if you have production issues, they'll drop you like a hot potato. You might have to be on time. Your quality has to be right. Your fit has to be excellent. I have a client who just, they had a terrible last season because their fit was very compromised, because little did they know that their fit model was pregnant, and she didn't mention it to anyone, and her measurements were off, so it compromised the fit on her clothing. You should not even think of getting reps until you feel that your production is very solid. You know who's going to make it. You have experience with this factory. You know that they're on time. You know your fit is correct. You know your quality is correct. Because it's worse to go out there and have unhappy buyers and unhappy stores and unhappy consumers, because then they'll have a bad taste in their mouth and they won't want to try you again. It's almost worse. It's like creating a negative for yourself. And rather than starting from zero and having all your ducks in a row. Now, we've talked about several points so far. Does anyone have any questions about anything we've talked about? I'd love to hear them. So type them in, and we will review them. Okay, so our next one is to be organized. Nothing is worse than working with someone who's very unorganized, very scattered, and doesn't have all of their paperwork and their inventory and everything in a way that people will be able to sell your product. If it's not easy to sell, they'll just move on and sell somebody else. So that's why it's key to have everything very clear. So you have to have line sheets, and your line sheets have to have terms on them, delivery on them, your address, the name of your company, your telephone number, your email address, your website address. All of that has to be on your line sheet, plus the styles. Hopefully you'll have pictures on them, because those are usually the best. If you only have sketches, that's okay. If you could put little like squares with the colors that each thing comes in, that's very helpful. You need to put sizing, wholesale, and MSRP, or another word for that is manufactured suggested retail price. They need to have all of that on there. Delivery information as well. Excuse me, I just had to take a sip of water. So the line sheets are really key. Photos that they can use to send out to stores is very helpful. The more photos you can supply them, and quality photos, not, what we say tongue-in-cheek, loving hands at home, where it looks like you asked your girlfriend if you can put something on her and you took a picture with your iPhone. You want to have as good a photography as you can, because that's what creates a customer. That's what gets them excited about seeing your product. The other thing is having correct samples. Having samples that are subpar or not in actual fabrics is a big red flag. It will stop a rep from taking you on. So I have been in situations where I've seen people show lines and they go, well, this is going to be this, and it's going to be in this fabric, and we're going to, shorten it 3 inches. And, but the fabric's not right, but it will be this, feel this swatch. And they give all of these explanations on each sample, all the things that are going to be different about the sample and what is not correct about the sample. And the buyers kind of glaze over and say, listen, when you have everything ready, call me. I can't visualize it the way it is. And then again, the rep will get frustrated and won't want to show your line. So most experienced reps won't even take you on if they feel that you do not have a solid sample line that they could show and have a comfort level that what they show in the showroom is what the customer will receive. There's nothing worse than having a sample and then having stock come in and not reflect the sample. Being a different fabric, being the colors off, maybe you made some changes on the garment as you went into the fitting. You have to try to get all of that done before you even supply samples to your reps. Okay, this is also a key one. Remember, a rep is a partner and not an employee. Reps are business owners, so you must treat them as such, have good follow-through, pay them on time, and show respect. There are people who treat their sales reps very poorly. And if you're a smaller line, even if you're a big line, you should never treat anyone poorly, especially people that could drop you and not want to work with you anymore. That's especially true. But just because you're an ethical person, you want to treat people with respect. But you also have to keep in mind, you have to have good follow through. If they send you an email asking questions, you don't want to take 2 days to get back to them. I have a personal policy that I get back to all of my people within 24 hours. But I have to tell you, I usually get back to them in 30 minutes. And the better your follow through and the better you are at answering questions and answering them quickly will mean the more success you will have. If they have to wait for their money, that's an annoying thing because they have overhead and they have expenses that they have to pay. So if they're waiting for your money, how are they going to pay their team or their rent or all of that stuff? And so that is what you have to think about when you work with someone. Think about how you want to be treated and treat them the same way as you expect to be treated. And also keep in mind that you don't really have much leverage with them until they start to build a business. So you can't have the same expectations for communication as you might have with someone who does $1 million in business for you. They'll need you as much as you need them, and they're going to give you much more time. And when you're new, they don't give you quite as much of their time because it's just not cost effective for them. So their bigger brands that they do more business with will get more attention. And as a small brand or a new brand, you have to be very encouraging and very motivating in order to get it to the level where you do have leverage and you do command more of their time. Okay, so before I kind of wrap this up and just give you an overview of this, does anyone else have any questions? Here's your chance. Anything that you want, even about your personal business, if you want to share that with me, here's your chance to kind of pick my brain and take advantage of our call. Okay, so let me just kind of wrap this up. Sales reps are a great tool for new people or small brands who are just starting out. Because you don't have the money usually to incur the cost of the overhead of having your own showroom, plus staffing it with salespeople, which could run into hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, hiring a sales rep where you pay commission and maybe a small monthly fee is a cost-effective way to build your business. And in the United States, there's 5 to 6 regions that are really key. There's the Northeast, the New York region, Mid-Atlantic, Southeast, Midwest, South Midwest, and the West Coast. And those are the big regions that you would want to have. And depending on your brand and your finances, the more reps you have or the less reps you have. You also have to keep in mind that you have to give them a full sample line for them to work with. And then they'll send it back to you at the end of the season, or you could have an agreement with them that they sell off the samples. But that's an expense that you have to consider when you have a sales rep. And sell them the way you would sell a store. You have to get them excited about your vision for the brand and why you think it's going to be successful and what makes it great and what makes you great to work with. Bonding with them, having a relationship with them is so key to having a big business. The reps that I worked with, we had very strong relationships. We talked together all the time, and they did millions of dollars in business for me. And that's what you want to have. So if you need any help finding reps, that's something that I do for my clients. So I could find reps for your product. Contact me if you need that. And I hope that you've enjoyed our webinar. Thank you so much for attending, and have a good day.